literally 10 minutes before we came on, news broke that they're at this point going to go ahead and fire Northwestern head coach Pat Fitzgerald. It seems to, from what I can tell, and it's hard because obviously now everything is just breaking, so all we're hearing is fired. We're hearing reports he's fired, this and that, so we don't really have like the full details of what changed their mind. I don't think anything new has come out. I feel like it was probably more of the pushback that they got for suspending the guy for 2 weeks in the middle of summer when nothing was going on.
Yeah, let's give some people a little bit of background for those who don't know. Okay, so because again, we just talked about we have a global audience here. Not everyone's going to be familiar with this story or know a whole lot about it. So let's talk a little bit about it. So Northwestern University, Northwestern College football team, and so there were some things that came out about hazing among the team, and the players doing a bunch of hazing with freshmen and stuff, and some pretty terrible things, I think would be safe to say. And we'll get into some of those details. I know you have some of them. And the team kind of came out about it, and they looked and they said, well, head coach said he didn't know anything about it. So they said, okay, well, probably should have. So we're going to go ahead and suspend you for 2 weeks. No idea, as you just alluded to, what they suspended him from, because it's in the middle of the summer. There's absolutely nothing happening with football at that time. So it's kind of a strange scenario that they would think that they were suspending him from something. Maybe they just wouldn't let him park in his parking space or something for 2 weeks.
Right.
I guess suspended for 2 weeks. But then recently, a player at Northwestern came forward to the administration and said that actually head coach Pat Fitzgerald did know about this hazing, did know about what was going on, and gave further details. And then since then, there's been a lot of pressure on Northwestern to do something about this. So just wanted to kind of give a little background there before you kind of jump in on some of the specifics. So
so
Pat Fitzgerald now officially fired minutes before we're on the show, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. All right. So take it away from there.
Yeah, so this came from the dailynorthwestern.com, which from what little I know about Northwestern or their magazines or online news, it looks to be probably a school type related news, but there is a lot of stuff that took place. So this is a former player, wanted to remain nameless. So he alleges that the team's hazing centered around a practice called or dubbed running, and it's in quotation marks here, which was used to punish team members, primarily freshmen, for mistakes on the field and in practice. So if a player was selected for running, they would be restrained by a group of 8 to 10 upperclassmen dressed in various purge-like masks.
Purge-like meaning from the movie The Purge, very creepy-looking masks.
Yeah, and here's the thing: would then begin, and this is also in quotation marks. I'm not sure why it has to be in quotation marks, but it is begin dry humping the victim in a dark locker room. So, it's a shocking experience as a freshman to see your fellow freshman teammates get ran, but then you see everybody bystanding in the locker room. The player said it's just a really abrasive and barbaric culture that has permeated throughout that program for years on end. There's also the Daily obtained images of whiteboards labeled "Runs Giving," again in quotation mark, and quote Shrek's List, containing a list of names indicating players that needed to be, quote, ran. The player said the tradition, especially common during training camp and around Thanksgiving and Christmas, which he said the team called, again, a lot of quotation marks here, runs giving and runs miss. It's done under the smoke and mirror of, this is team bonding, but no, he claims that it's sexual abuse. According to this former team members allegedly identified players for running by clapping their hands above their heads around the player. The practice, the player said, was known within the team as the Shrek clap. I've seen Shrek. I don't remember anyone clapping around Shrek, but I don't know. It's been quite a while. So The Daily obtained a video of a player clapping his hands during a game. Just like, whoa. Okay, well, I mean, of course I would think so, but the anonymous player that said that motion, the same motion was taken to signify running. So he's claiming that whatever clapping was done during the game was the same motion taken to signify running. Now, according to the player, Fitzgerald repeatedly made the signal during practices when players, especially freshmen, made a mistake. So this is where they're saying he knew all along. The players believe, the player believes some players interpreted Fitzgerald making these signals as knowingly encouraging the hazing to continue. Everyone would just be looking at each other and be like, bro, Fitz knows about this because you wouldn't take that action otherwise. Everyone joins in because he's the head coach. Now, there's a second player that they also spoke with who, again, wanted to remain anonymous, also witnessed the action being taken. So then, of course, NU hires an independent law firm, Arnett Fox Schiff, to investigate the claims. Lead investigator Maggie Hickey, she was a former inspector general of Illinois, interviewed, of course, coaches, staff, current, former players, reviewed thousands of documents. And then according to the release, Hickey's investigation revealed that while former and current players varied on their perspective regarding the conduct, the whistleblower's claims were, quote, largely supported by evidence. So participation participation in or knowledge of these hazing activities, which were not detailed in the summary, was widespread across NU football players, the investigation found. So now the university spokesman, John Yates, declined to comment on the specific details of the allegation, but goes on to say, our first priority is to support and protect our students, including student athletes who had the courage to come forward in this independent investigation. That is why the university immediately opened up the investigation upon learning of the allegations, and we took decisive action once we ascertained the facts. And then he goes on to say, of course, then they talk about putting him on, Fitzgerald on unpaid suspension for 2 weeks in the middle of the summer. And then, of course, he comes out. Fitzgerald's like, I'm disappointed. I didn't know anything about this. And then this is where the university president comes in, Michael Schill, that he believes he, quote, may have erred in weighing the appropriate sanction for Coach Fitzgerald. So
maybe.
Yeah, so you've already now given him the suspension, and now it's like, we may have messed up. We gave the guy a 2-week vacation in the middle of the summer. So now they go back in here. Now they're going to go and, obviously now they're going to take and fire the guy. So in addition to, this is kind of getting back into this, in addition to running, the whistleblower alleged that he witnessed the team participate in other hazing traditions in which freshmen were forced to strip naked and perform various acts, include bear crawling and slingshotting them across the floor with exercise bands. So they had to bear crawl and then slingshot themselves across the floor with exercise bands.
How does this make you feel closer to your teammates?
I have no idea.
Like, how is it like, okay, freshman, you need to be cool with us. You need to show you're part of the team. And then that's what you come up with? It's not even like, you need to wash my car for a month or something. Right. It's like, get naked and slide across the floor.
Now, in a once-a-year tradition dubbed the car wash, the first player said that some players would stand naked at the entrance to the showers and spin around, forcing those entering the shower to basically rub up against a bare naked man. So you're essentially standing there and just spinning in a circle like a car wash would, an automatic
like push your way through them.
And then they would essentially hose them down, which the guy said was extremely painful. So they apparently had a hose in there that then they would hose them down. And then he also witnessed and said, the player also alleged that he witnessed and was forced to participate. So this kind of, I'm not sure if he meant to say this, but it kind of at least narrows down who the guy is. was forced to participate in what was called a naked center quarterback exchange, wherein a freshman quarterback was forced to take an under center snap from a freshman center while both players were naked. And it just kind of goes on and on. The second player confirms the allegations. There's a lot of other stuff. They did a Gatorade shake challenge where they just forced teammates and freshmen to just drink as much Gatorade shakes as they could. In 10 minutes, and he said he never saw anyone not throw it up. It's just dumb stuff. I mean, they're college kids. I mean, they're going to be idiots. We went to college together. We were quite the idiot morons.
For the record, we were way better than this.
Way better than this.
We were so much more creative than the Northwestern football team. When we were in college, our stuff that we did, and it wasn't hazing other people necessarily, but the stuff that we did was exactly. We were far better and far more creative than the Northwestern football team. So I'm disappointed 100%. On multiple levels in the Northwestern football team.
And this was years before this, so I mean they've had plenty of time to catch up and exceed us. But so that's basically it. I mean, I just it goes on and on and on. But
it sounds like they knew about it. For it.
Yeah. So it sounds like they knew about it, and then the president comes out and says, "Well, you know what? Maybe we made a mistake." And so now the other extreme is let's just fire the guy.
Got to fire him now. Yeah. So there's two things, right? We talk about this type of stuff on the show a lot. Nowadays, and the way the culture is and everything else, you almost have to fire this person. Now, I'm not going to say right now because, again, I'm hearing this stuff is constantly coming out as breaking. You're reading stuff that's brand new that just got printed a couple of minutes ago. So, I mean, I'm not going to pretend that I've done a deep enough dive to truly have my own opinion right now on whether or not he should, meaning he being head coach Pat Fitzgerald, should lose his job over it. He has lost his job over it, but I can tell you that when it happened, when all of the stuff came out, it is very rare that any coach on any level would be able to keep a job with this stuff happening. It's incredibly rare. And setting aside for a moment what Pat Fitzgerald may have done at Northwestern and may have overlooked or encouraged or just tolerated. Setting that aside for a moment. First of all, this hazing stuff is so stupid. I don't even know why people are still doing this. I mean, it's so dumb. And if you're an athlete or just, I don't care if you're in a fraternity and you're not even an athlete or just a regular student, you look dumb. Don't do it. It's stupid. Yeah. It has nothing to do with sensitivities or anything else. It's just dumb. Yeah. You think it's not, but it is. And then separate from that is the fact that you're going to look dumb because it's going to come out. Because every person in the world nowadays has one of these, right?
There you go.
Here, I got two right here, right? So everybody has at least one, and everybody's filming everything all of the time. So the idea that you can do this stuff and then somehow it's not going to catch up with you, man, it feels right at the time. You're always wrong. You are 100% of the time wrong. And now the thing that's going to be interesting is, and we'll never get a chance to hear the other side of this, but this goes back a little ways. So Pat Fitzgerald, the head coach of Northwestern, he was actually a star linebacker for Northwestern in the 90s. And he's been the head coach there. Yeah, and been the head coach at Northwestern since 2006. So this dude is not just a head coach getting fired. He's an icon at that school. And so this is a bigger deal than it might be at other schools. But the fact of the matter is there was no chance. Now, I will tell you this. Again, let me preface by saying, setting aside whatever Pat Fitzgerald did wrong, Northwestern could not have handled this situation much more poorly than they did. Because when this happens, there's a very simple playbook. It is so easy. You say, we're going to suspend the coach during this investigation, it's the summertime anyway, right? It's a non-issue. We're going to suspend him during this investigation until we get all the facts. And then when we get all the facts, we'll iron out what our course of action is. But that's not what Northwestern did. What Northwestern did was they said, basically with a wink and a nod, like, well, look, the guy's an icon here. He's a big deal. Like, we'll make a show of it. We'll suspend him for 2 weeks in the middle of the summer when nothing's happening anyway. So there's no real loss. But it shows that we care and we did something, right? They tried to like cheat the system a little bit. But this system can't be cheated. It doesn't work that way. And so now when the investigation inevitably comes out and everything else happens, then you realize like, we shouldn't have just suspended the guy for 2 weeks in the middle of the summer. And now we're the ones that look bad. You had the opportunity to look good, collecting all the facts, all the information, and making a very rational, cautious, careful, and fair decision. Instead, you look like you tried to cover it up because of the popularity of the head coach. And now you got caught. So now you have to go all the way to the other end of the spectrum and fire him. Right? Yep. Am I missing anything?
No. I mean, and that's what it is when the president comes out and says, yeah, maybe, we probably need to rethink this. And like, well, what were you? This wasn't like a whim decision. Clearly, they had a whole investigation that was already done. And then you got all the facts. And then you say, 2 weeks, middle of the summer. So what do you mean? Maybe you should have, rethought the process, or that should have already been done. Clearly it was done. You just tried to sneak this under and, throw it out on I don't know, probably a Friday, just do a Friday news dump where it's going to get washed out, with everything else going on the weekend. No one cares. And the story just kept getting legs and getting legs. Oh, crap. Now you got to come back out and you've got to reverse everything. And then you went to the extreme end, maybe you suspend them for, you could have maybe suspended them for the year, or you could have suspended them, half of the season or something, and probably would have appeased most people because, I mean, yes, hazing
no one
is dumb.
Died or was seriously injured.
And that's exactly it. Now, there's more stuff coming out where again, this is stuff this broke 15 minutes before we came on.
Yeah.
I've seen some things where, they're now claiming he's fostered, like a racist atmosphere. I saw that pop up. And so I don't know what that is. There could be way, way, way more, to that. There was something in there about the women's cheerleading, being forced to cut their braids, African-American women being forced to cut their braids, something with the African-American men, having to do the same or something under Fitzgerald. So, kind of that whole fostering of a racist atmosphere. I know, again, we just got on, this just broke. So could any of that be true? Maybe that's the new stuff that came out. Didn't sound like it, but maybe that's, now, of course, now there's way more stuff that comes out. And that's how it always goes, though.
Yep.
Someone does something, and then all of a sudden it's just a news dump upon a dump upon a dump. And then all this stuff comes out, and you're like, where did all this stuff come from?
Yeah, who knew this all the time? Who knew all this information this whole time and didn't use it, and now everyone has it?
Yeah, especially this day and age, with like, if someone's being forced to cut their hair, how is none of that stuff? Yeah, like how is that not coming out? Like how did that not come out until after he gets fired? Then all of a sudden, so take that with a grain of salt, because again, I didn't do any research. It was just something that popped up on my timeline of like, hey, also this. So maybe there's way more to it.
But there is the other part of that too, which is it's going to be very interesting what the Northwestern administration knew and didn't do anything about. As you're talking about some of these things about forcing haircuts and different things like that, I would be surprised. I'm not going to say it's impossible. I'd be surprised if none of those students ever complained to anyone and got swept under the rug. It would be surprising.
Yeah. No, I guarantee. And it's probably, according to the article I had read, that like they had gone to the administration about things, and, and they said that the administration was understanding and, and looked into stuff, but didn't really seem like, during the whole process of when they were saying something that they really took any action, obviously. So
yeah,
I don't know how much they've swept under the rug. And then if this keeps going, and that could have just been, Fitzgerald is the old sacrificial lamb at this point. Like, hey, let's just cut bait and hope it all goes away so we keep our jobs, because that whole Penn State scandal, which was a million times worse than this scandal could ever possibly be. But that just snowballed into many, many heads rolling, so it's, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, so there's probably way more to it. If it's just that, I don't know. Had they come out with a stricter, punishment at that point, maybe, maybe this would have blown over, but they didn't. They gave him 2 weeks. So
no, you tried to do the slap on the wrist, and then now you got caught, and then there's no longer a middle ground.
No,
like that's the thing that's frustrating, because you nailed you hit the nail on the head earlier when you said maybe they could have gotten away with suspending him for a year before, and then guess what? It gets forgotten about. Now, I'm not saying that's the right thing, but it's what would have happened. Fitzgerald would be out for a year, then he'd come back the following season, and then the team gets back to normal and whatever. You're able to get past it, and you're able to keep this icon of your program still in that elevated type of role. And have that perception of him be really good. But now it's all shot. Like, and that's dicey. So anyway, the Northwestern head coach Pat Fitzgerald fired after this hazing incident. And I don't know what you do with him after this. Like, I don't know what's next for him. I mean, does he get another job? Are teams scared of this? I would say 2-3 years from now, there's every possibility that he gets back into the game.
I could, but I mean, it's not like Northwestern was some powerhouse football team. I mean, geez, he had a losing record in the Big Ten, barely a winning record. I think he was 109 and 101 or something like that in his career there. So he lasted way longer. I don't know. Maybe Northwestern's just way more difficult to get into than, say, a Michigan or Ohio State or something. Right. I don't know. But it's not like this dude set the world on fire as a football coach. So maybe. People are going to stay away from him for a long time. So hopefully he's saved his money up, and we'll see if his contract gets paid out or if his contract gets null and voided for cause.
That'll be interesting, because you're right. I mean, so Pat Fitzgerald is 48 years old. He finishes his time at Northwestern with a 110 and 101 record. So 9 more wins than losses. He had 2 Big Ten West Division titles and 5 bowl wins. And of course, as we know, bowl wins nowadays mean almost nothing, because there are about 214 different bowls. It's not like it used to be. So the idea of bowl wins, that schools still talk about that, is like, I mean, pretty soon they'll have like bowls for high school teams to be able to claim that they won as well. So bowls don't really mean anything, but yeah, you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think Northwestern football is going to be so much worse off without Pat Fitzgerald coaching it. When you have a sample size of 211 games from a head coach, and you only win 110 of them, 211 game total. If you have a sample size of 211 games from a head coach, and you lost 101 of them, you're not great, right? That's just what it is.